Let's play some chords. Here in the beginner's corner, this is a reference for most of the important open chords that you're going to need to know for now. And again, if you know all this already, you're skipping ahead. But let's go ahead and dig into these. The first one is a G major chord, and I'm fingering it this way. You'll realize as we move forward that there can be several ways to finger different chords. In this case, our G major chord is going to be fingered with the second finger down there on the low G note, 3rd fret of the E string. First finger will be 2nd fret of the A string, that's a B note. Third finger will be way up here on the 3rd fret of the high E, and you strum every string. So let's backtrack for a moment. What is a chord? A chord is simply many notes played at the same time. That's the easiest way to think about it. So when we are strumming chords, we're playing a bunch of notes at once. It's really just 3 notes, and then they repeat themselves in different octaves. All of these open chords are what we call triads, meaning they're 3-note chords. So there's a G major. That's one way to finger it. Another way to finger it is this way. Okay? So that's just switching around, and it's important to know this chord. You are going to use it in the future, even if it's a bit of a twister for your fingers at this point. Let's give it a try. So now our 3rd finger plays the low note, 2nd finger is on the 2nd fret of the A string, and our 4th finger is tucked in there on the 3rd fret of the high E. And again, you'll hear all those notes really clear. If you're hearing anything thuddy or buzzy, it's because you're not getting a good clean break on the fret, so you can try moving a little closer to the fret. You can try pushing it down just a little bit harder. Again, I don't want you to push too hard. For a player like me who's been doing this for a long time, I am barely squeezing this down. For you, if you're just getting started, you might be squeezing it down with a little bit of effort, but over time that will get really, really easy, and I don't want you to put too much force on this. It's more about being very precise. But there you go. There's your other version of the G chord. Now, the next fingering that's written on the page is this one. And that is just a different version of a G chord, so it is closely related to the first one that we played. 2nd finger down here, 1st finger. But now our 3rd finger is tucked in there on the 3rd fret of the B string, and the 4th finger is up on the high G note there, 3rd fret of the high E. And this is a bit of a tighter sounding G chord that we use in bluegrass strums. So it sounds different because our B string is being fretted on the 3rd fret now instead of open, which gives that a janglier, a little bit more of an open sound. This is what I often call either the Bluegrass G or the closed G. So there you go. There's another G chord for you. Moving on, think about where you are in this fingering and look at the next chord, D. Notice that our 3rd finger is on the same fret. So when you're switching from that G chord to this D chord, you can leave the 3rd finger down. So we'll come back to that in a moment. Let's just check out this D chord. So open D. 1st finger is on the 2nd fret of the G string. 3rd finger is on the 3rd fret of the B string. 2nd finger is on the 2nd fret of the high E, and you only strum from the D string on up. So this is a good place to mention that all of these chords are in root position. So the root note of the chord, in this case a D, because it's a D chord, is your lowest note. So you don't strum anything below that. If you happen to strum these low notes, it wouldn't sound very good. Okay, so just stick to root position chords for the time being. So now that you're on this D chord, let's switch back to the G chord with the third finger on the third fret of the B string. So let's practice that a couple times. Here's your G. Now switch back to D, leaving that third finger down. Great. And then back to G again, third finger stays down. And then back to D one more time. And now let's go ahead and rest your hand. Take a breath. Chords at first are the thing that takes the most effort on the guitar. And so we want to give ourselves plenty of opportunities to rest. You don't want to just grip it for long periods of time. Take that opportunity to rest. And take your time with this, because switching between one chord and another is the name of the game. And getting quicker at switching from a G to a D chord, from a D to a C chord, from a C to an A, whatever your chord change is going to be the measure of how well you perform the music. So for now, spend a little bit of time switching between G and D until you're very comfortable with that chord change. Now let's go ahead and move on to the next chord, C major. Now I say C major, that's indicated by a capital C. That means C major. And oftentimes you'll just hear that explained as play a C chord. Okay, that defaults to major. There are other types of chords like minor, seventh, etc., and we will specify if it's one of those. So here's your C major chord, third finger, third fret of the A string, second finger, second fret of the D string, first finger on the first fret of the B string. We omit the low E because C is our lowest note, that's our root note. There's your C chord. Now, another time you might hear muffled notes is if your fingers aren't high enough arched. So if I'm hearing my G string muffled, it means my second finger is getting in the way of it. If I hear my high E muffled, it's because my first finger is getting in the way of it. So we want to keep those fingers at a nice high arch so we don't just hear the fretted notes cleanly, but we also hear the open notes clean. So you want to hear that nice clean sounding C major chord. For practice here, you want to switch to a D chord and back to C. Give yourself as much time as you need to, but make that nice and clean and practice switching between those two chords.